And you guys were both really influenced by that from completely different parts of the world, really, which is insane to think about. But one thing I wanted to talk about is how do you guys feel that Texas has kind of influenced your style or genre or whatever it is that you guys do now? I'd love to hear both of y'all, especially Chris being from Canada, because I know that it had to be a culture shock coming down here.
Yeah. So as I'm listening to Adam share, and you also saying, Chris, about how the experience of listening to the player on the stage, that was I was touring around with Adam and playing shows and singing a little bit on Hi-Fi Love. I was on a pleasure visa, we called it, because I got a little trouble at the border, and they were worried that I was going to come here and not and work without a visa. So I was told that by one of the border guards. He circled the working portion on the back, and he said, "You can go to Texas and you can have fun only. You can only have fun."
I
And I was
love
like,
that.
it's about time. I've been working since I was a little kid. I'm ready for some fun." And so I joined Adam on the stage, and I think back to your "Let It Choose You" record is when I sort of was on the scene just before, and Lloyd Maines is who transformed me because I've got this big voice that I can belt, and I've been singing Aretha Franklin and you name it. I pretty much I'll sing it if I'm grooving with it. I can get it down and sing usually, and soul singers, all kinds of stuff. And it's in it, and he turned me into an instrument, in the studio,
Yeah.
really right there in that day. Um, and I always remember too, talk about influence, I was singing spoken for, and there's a lot of O's in that song,
Hmm.
being Canadian, those O's around,
Yep. Yep.
And so he patched in. It's one of my favorite stories. You just, you hear Lloyd's voice come over. I never can do his accent, but he's like, Chris, could you sing a little less like Adam's Canadian wife and a little more like his sister from Tyler, Texas?
Let's go.
And he actually had to come over because I was still around, and because with harmony singing you got to match up,
Yep.
and that's one thing I love to do is just match up, and that was really my first crash course in doing that. And he actually had me come and hook my fingers in my pants and kick my boot out, sort of my shoe, to do a little country pose to make sure I was in the saddle on it.
Mm.
And so, in that session and singing with him, and I think just playing music with you and wanting to honor what he is doing and was doing, and lend my voice to it. What can I bring, and what not to sing, and when not to sing, and has and then Adam always says, he's Americana and me. He's kind of like he feels like, oh, we want to see what else you can do, but I'm happy with it. I like, my favorite is to be the accompanist. That's like to sing a harmony and to add a little bit of flavor into a song. That really, I mean, I'll sing a lead, no problem.
Mm.
But my favorite is that. So I think honing that over time, really when we lock in on a set and we're playing a show and it's just magic for me, and to hear him together, it's like we're in the studio live off the floor,
I love that
and that
you learned that your voice is an instrument. It's so lost by a lot of artists how important vocals are as an instrument. I feel, especially in a studio setting. So, like Lloyd's a freaking icon. So, um,
he's the one to, I got
yeah,
lucky that it was with Lloyd, and then of course working with Adam Carroll, you're not going to go wrong. But
mm,
and then over time, we've built it and layered it, not trying to shove it
right.
in or not trying to push in on what isn't supposed to be there. So that's where Texas has influenced me in a lot of ways, right? In so many ways, it's a new experience,
Yeah,
being here, and like I said before, it being such a beloved form of art here, that it's that people don't often say. They do say, "What's your other job?" But what's your other gig? Most of the time, are you a songwriter? Oh, cool.
mm,
Back home it is, oh, you play songs. Where do you work?
mm,
That kind of thing. So it's treasured here still.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it. Yeah. So that's my take on that. I don't know if I went off track on the
No,
question.
you did great. Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. And Adam, what about you? Like being from Eastern Texas, I feel like I'm in Northeast Texas myself, and I feel like original music kind of gets lost in this area for some reason. I don't know why that is, but I read somewhere in an interview that you did that you felt out of place in your hometown. Why was that?
Chris, I just sort of always kind of felt different, there and growing up in Tyler. I didn't really fit in well in high school. Back then, I thought I was the only one, but I mean, there's so many people who feel the same, and I think that you know, I just sort of struggled to really fit in. I just didn't, I had some friends, but I never really felt very popular. And in terms of like the stuff that I liked, um, it was usually stuff like that my parents turned me on to, like the Beatles or Hendrix or even classic country and stuff. Like most of the people that I hung out or that were in my sphere there, and I'm thinking of high school. Just thought that, and I would remember I would tape like a Hendrix tapes covers to my books. Like I would decorate my books,
That's cool.
That's
That's good to know.
and
badass. Yeah.
and
I don't like these
well,
kids
thank
who are
you,
at
man.
school.
Right.
But they were like, this one kid was like, "Man, what are you doing with a Hendrix thing on your butt?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's awesome." He's like, "It's
He's
old,
just
it's
jealous
old."
that he didn't have it himself.
Yeah, and but I just sort of felt out of place. And to your question, to your point, I think maybe part of the, you know, in what people think of Texas as Texas, when you're not from here, Texas. I guess a lot of people in Texas as well. Like when I was gone from there, in North Carolina, for instance, or other places, I've noticed people think of it as San Antonio and Austin and West Texas.
Yep.
They think of cowboys, and that East Texas gets ignored as not really important or part of the story. And a lot of people, it also gets kind of like that. Like, oh, it's got a bad reputation. Um, and that I think maybe it's just unfortunate that it gets overlooked that way, and maybe possibly that has something to do with why it's difficult to get that kind of thing going there. When I was uh, kind of learning about Texas music, and watching Robert Earl Keen, or hearing about Towns Van Zandt and stuff, or and I heard those songs, or Terry Allen, Lubbock people. I really connected to those folks, but I never, you know, I the places that they were from, I didn't know anything about. But those you know those lyrics and those songs, touched me in a way that So I think that for me, I learned from from those writers that I could write about my area, in a way that you know made sense. And I think that as I get older, I realize that area is part of me, and so even I've always I did kind of have a time where I didn't want to stay there, and I think Austin area has just always been, hopefully it will continue, but it has always been, where people go here to pursue music, I
Hmm.
think. But as I get older, I realize, that, you know, the parts of that part of, I don't see it as a place that I want to leave. I see it as just kind of like, you know, part of me,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if that
love that,
answers the
man. It's
question.
it's funny. I've lived in East Texas since 2001, and I've been part of the music scene here since probably 2007 ish. So about 15 years, 17 years, something like that. 18, I guess it's more than that. Jesus, we're getting old. Um, but yeah, I just feel like I don't know if it's a venue problem here, where like venues don't book original music, or if it's a listener problem, where maybe the fans here, music fans here, just want to hear cover stuff. I don't know what it is. I just wish there was more original music outlets here in East Texas, because there's just so many phenomenal songwriters from here, yourself included. Will Jennings is from here, and Sonny Sweeney, Neil McCoy, Gene Watson. I mean, there's just so many amazing singer-songwriters from East Texas, and I just wish venues or listeners would give original music a little more chance here. So was it Austin that you really started to feel like you fit in somewhere musically, Adam?
No, I actually, well, I mean, specifically Austin. I moved there, um, in the late '90s. I moved in with Corey Morrow, and I was a roommate of his for a bit, and I opened shows for him. And that kind of fraternity scene that he was in at that point, um, and he had a lot of fans. And I just, but then I moved to San Marcos,
Ah,
and I met, and I had a really good team of publicists that Terry Hendricks turned me on to. So I think through Lloyd Maines and Terry Hendricks, I kind of found, and Kent Finley, Cheatham Street Warehouse. I found a real home in San Marcos, and I just that was the place that I think I just felt real comfortable in. Um, and it was a real community of folks uh, there, were playing and stuff, and writing, and it all kind of centered around Cheatham Street. And so yeah, that's kind of where I made my first kind of connection. But then I would go and play gigs in Austin and all around. And but as far as being like an Austin, there were people that I know that you know they were kind of got their start there, and I never really felt like I did, only because I never really lived in Austin very long.
yeah.